Today, I had the amazing opportunity to sit down with Tariko Satterfield and learn more about his company and how he got here today. I'm with Tariko Satterfield. Let's learn a little bit about him. Tell me about yourself.
Well, so first of all, I am a husband. I'm a mental performance consultant. I'm an author. And I love God, to be
Me
honest.
too.
And I took all of, I guess, those things and merged them all together to create a product to serve people. And so that's what I'm a servant most of all. And all those titles, that's what it is, a servant.
Okay. And can you tell me what got you into this line of work? Like, what made you want to start this business?
No, so for years, first of all, I played sports. And from playing sports, I have like 4 different scenarios, like in my family. I had a sibling, my oldest sister, who she went on to play college volleyball, was really good academically in school. And then you have me, the knucklehead that was in sports. I grew up and went through a lot of stuff in my home, with my family, and sports was like an outlet for me, for anger, to be honest, for me to get it all out, the emotions. My journey was I played high school ball, and then while I was in high school ball, I've been singing since I was maybe 7, 8 years old.
Okay, you got some notes.
The vocals, man. And so I loved singing.
Yeah.
People knew I could sing because I sang at church. I was in show choir, encore in high school, but I also played football. My first love, though, singing.
Yeah.
So I got a full scholarship to go to college to sing.
Wow.
And it was like, boom.
That's crazy.
So-
I've never known that.
So I went to college to sing, had an amazing time there. But from there, that was the first time where I had to make a decision. Was I letting sports go?
Mhm.
Or was I going to stay connected to it in some way?
Yeah.
And I stayed connected. I had friends at the time that were at the University of Alabama who played on the football team. And so I kept working out. I kept training, kept being around. And while working out for me, lifting and stuff, I decided, you know what? I can train people to play. And so that's what I started doing. I started training individuals. Once I started training people, it clicked for me. Something hit me. Like after years of training, you would see people come back year in, year out, Samantha. And every year they would talk to you while you're training them, but you never dive into the conversations because you stay focused on the training.
Yeah.
You would have lighthearted conversation with your clients, right?
Mhm.
You build connections because you want them to keep coming back and then feel like they're at home with you. But what I noticed was that we were kind of staying away from the spiritual development.
Yeah.
So I'm developing you in your physical body. We are having conversations, so you're getting mental stimulation from the work. But the thing that I recognized, because I was in ministry as well at the time, the thing that I recognized that we were not developing in, and I still see this in the field, that we do a good job developing people in their body and mentally encouraging. We're doing a much better job encouraging them to take the mental, go to mental health and get therapy, all that. But we say nothing about their spiritual development.
Yeah.
I ran a group at my church called Men in the Making with the pastor. And Samantha, honestly, it just so happened I was training the number 1 running back in the state of Connecticut, and he was in that group. And we had this purity ceremony that I talk about all the time with the guys after training them about being celibate. And he stood up in front of the church, and I'll never forget, everybody else did cookie cutter. Let me just say, what we said for them to say, they did that. He stood up there and he held that podium and he said, looked around at the church and said, I can't promise y'all this. And I was like, oh, I love this. He's like, I gotta be honest. He said, I gotta be honest. All these girls coming at me, all this stuff is happening. And he's like, I'm going to do the best I can, though. He said, I promise y'all, I'm going to keep praying. I'm going to keep talking to God because I need his help. He said, I need his help because all these girls be wanting to talk to me. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to make it. He said, but I'm going to do my very best. That moment for me was so powerful because the transparency was like, that's the deep work.
Yeah.
Right. And watching that moment of truth happen for him kind of taught me you can train people in their body because he was a phenomenal athlete. But spiritually, what he was saying was, I don't really got the tools.
Yeah.
Just I know we did this class, and I know what I said, but I don't trust this yet. So it taught me we've got to get better at giving spiritual bandwidth. And why spiritual bandwidth? Because spiritual bandwidth is where character is held. I know we think character is what's on the stage. I know we think character is what we watch on TV, movies, the acting and actors, but the kind of character that we want to see in athletes off the field is not the one that performs on the field.
Yeah.
Right. And so as I started to watch this, it made me say, wait a minute. The Bible says that God made us before we were in our mother's womb. If he made us before we was in our mother's womb, then that means that he knows something about us, not even our mom knows.
Yeah.
We need to find out what that is. The only way to find out what God thinks about you is to study his word. Mm-hmm. So his word starts showing you a part of yourself, a character that nobody here knows. And I started to do this work with athletes and started to see transformation happen in people's lives because they were no longer entrapping themselves with the things that were plaguing them, right? But they're now letting it all out. And once it's all out, you can put what needs to be in there, right? We can plant the right things.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into this work. I fell in love with it from there, working in schools, working in education, and always loving talking to the students, getting people to open up themselves. And I jumped into life coaching, went and did some training on emotional intelligence and failed a lot. Let me say it that way. I went through a personal classroom of failures that actually taught me that there was a lure at the end of the word failure, and it could either take me away from where I wanted to go or take me toward what I wanted to go to. And that's what I started to do was utilize the areas that I had struggled through and said, wait a minute, people can learn lessons from this. I can pour back into others and they can grow their capacities.
Yeah. Well, I always think like how God says, like, paraphrase it here, but like, you have to go through failures to like learn something.
Come on,
kind of like in Job when he goes through all of that. Like that's one of my favorite books. Is like he's going through all of this stuff and he's not giving up and he's and in the end, like it does work out.
I love that passage you brought up because that scripture says, "Though you slay me, yet will I trust him."
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful statement. Like the way he said, yes, I'm going to go through this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But I'm going to trust God. I'm going to keep running to him, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, even if I don't get it right, I'm going to keep running to him. Another figure in the Bible that I think is a strong figure in this work that we're doing in performance psychology and with biblical principles is David. Like, we know David was a valiant warrior. Like, he slayed thousands, 10,000 bears, lions, Goliath, right? So he was taking on things that most people were not willing to fight against. Spiritually, he knew something about himself that other people didn't know because everybody had an opportunity to confront the giant.
Yeah.
Think about that personally. How many of us have an opportunity to confront the giant?
Yeah.
And we're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. Let me stay away from this giant. He might be a little big. He might knock me out, right? But David said, I'm not even going based on me. He was like, there's something internal that's bigger than me that looks way bigger than what that giant is.
Yeah.
And he believed in that thing, which was the character of God. I believe in the character of God And I believe the character of God is bigger than this big giant that's standing in front of me. And in stature, it's bigger than me, but what's in me is bigger than him.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to use that to defeat the giant, cut his head off.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's what I wanted. That's literally what we do in the transformation we take athletes through. That there are giants you're going to face. There's no avoiding the giants.
Yeah.
But we can face them with these faith-based principles, and they'll always cut the head off.
What makes athletes special for this program? Like, I don't know if it's super important for everyone. So what kind of pushed you to want to work with athletes? I know you said you work with athletes your entire, and that kind of made it, but what was like a disconnect with athletes?
You know what's really interesting? This is an excellent question because I've never said this on camera before. But a few years ago, I felt the Lord speak to me and my wife. We were in California, and I told my wife, I said, I think the Lord wants us to move to Florida. It's time for us to move to Florida, but I don't know where. And so she was like, okay, all right, well, and you know where, let me know, right? And so I got some very specific words, which was, it's going to feel like things are closing in on you where you are. Mm-hmm. And one day my wife came on and she said, oh my God, I'm so tired of being here. It feels like everything is just closing in on me. And I looked at her and we both kind of recognized that she said it from what I had told her. And she was like, I said, I think we need to pray about where we need to go. So we sat down right when she came home from work. We sat down on our couch, like no cap, like literally sat down on the couch and we prayed and said, God, where do you want us to go? Wherever you tell us to go, we'll go. We'll obey you. And we finished praying. As soon as we finished praying, we were sitting on the couch, cut the TV on, cut a YouTube video on like we normally do. We watch different houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And right when we cut this video on, the first thing it does is across our 65-inch TV, it spelled Clearwater in all white letters across the screen.
Yeah.
And we were like, we both like looked at each other like, we're like, well, guess we're going to Clearwater.
Oh, you picked a nice place.
Right. No, he did.
Yeah.
He picked a nice place. And seriously, we have no family in Clearwater, but we trusted what happened. And we said, okay, let's start looking for a place in Clearwater. I had a date that I wanted to be in Clearwater. Mm. And that was June 8th. And my wife found a place and she was like, this is it. And can I just keep it 100?
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, no, that's way too expensive. And she was like, what? And she was like, I know that's the place. I said, well, let's get some other options. So long story short, that was the place. We moved. They said, you can move in June 8th. I said, perfect. So we there. As I moved here, I thought I was going to launch my physical ministry location. Me and my wife, we did launch our ministry called Exposure Life. And when we launched Exposure Life, we used to do virtual Bible studies. In the process of me doing that is when the Lord spoke to my heart. It was like, I know you thought you were going to start like a church, because I've been in ministry for a long time working in ministry. He said, nah, that's not the way I'm taking you.
Yeah.
I want you to go back into athletics. And I was like, what? Go back into athletics. So I started looking at becoming a chaplain. For months, I was looking at chaplain. And he was like, nah, I want you to train athletes mentally. And I was like, he said, that's my army. He's like, people look at athletics and think that athletes are training for the game. And he said, but that's my end time army. And I said, okay, I see. I was like, I see what you're doing, God. Okay, that was clever. And so it ignited this passion for me to jump back into work. And so honestly, obeying God is how I got back in. I always tell people, I wish I could tell people that it was school. It was obeying God. And because I obeyed him, he started to open doors. I started to obey his instructions. And that obedience to what I discern him spiritually speaking to me has continued to walk me into green pastures. And that's what we teach athletes, that listen, just like you hear those thoughts, just like you hear that inner voice, there's a spiritual inner voice that where God speaks. And I need you to learn to get so quiet that you can relate to that voice like you relate to the negativity.
Yeah.
Right? Like that voice has to become the loudest voice in your life. The scripture says, my sheep know my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow.
Yeah.
So we see it tells you that there are two voices. There's my voice and there's the voice of a stranger.
Yeah.
Why would he call all the other voices strangers? Because you wouldn't just go with a stranger, right? You wouldn't let a stranger just take you somewhere.
Yeah.
But his voice, the voice of the Father, yeah, you can take where we going, Dad, right?
Yeah.
And so it's critical for them to learn the voice of God, because when they don't know the voice of God, that's how we get ourselves in bad situations,
Yeah.
right?
And I feel like for me personally, like
Yeah.
before I knew God, I kind of was like, how am I gonna, like, how does this work, basically? And I think once you know him and once you get into his word, it just completely changes you. And you will, like, I
Exactly.
can't even go back to like how I was before.
Exactly.
I don't remember how I was before.
You know, so my mentor said, what purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
Yeah.
So when you don't know the purpose of a thing, you abuse the thing.
Mhm.
And that I've seen that happen for me in so many places in my life.
Yeah.
That's even, can I just keep it real?
Yeah.
That's even coming into church and ministry, where I saw areas of my life where I consider myself a really good guy. Doing good things, going to church, singing worship. I pray all the time. I read my Bible and I study. But there were some areas that I hadn't opened up the chamber of my heart. And so in those areas where purpose was not known, there was some misuse. And I love doing this too, Sam, which is dispelling. We don't do a good job in our society, teaching people to study the etymology of words. When you hear the word abuse, it has such a negative connotation for people that people run away from the areas where they may be. I'm going to give you a definition for the word abuse: abnormally using. Because abuse just means to abnormally use something. So if I abnormally use my ears, my words, abnormally use my thinking, abnormally use my skills, right? I can abnormally use my parents.
Yeah.
Parents can abnormally use their children. You can abnormally use school. You can abnormally use a pencil. So when you start thinking about abnormal use of things, not the word abuse, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm an abuser too,
Yeah.
right? But when we normalize that, and when I say normalize it, it's helping people see that development is necessary.
Yeah.
And God intended all of us to develop these inward parts of us, so the exterior results are what he wants to see, what he desires.
Yeah. I want to hear like a fun story or like a crazy story from when you were in sports.
Ooh,
If you haven't.
ooh, I got tons.
Chef.
Let's talk about, I'll tell a story about when I threw discus. I won second in the state of Alabama throwing the discus, but the journey to winning second in the state was interesting. I had gone to sectionals. I only threw discus for 2 years, but I had made it to sectionals. But right before I made it to sectionals, I didn't know I was going to make it, because the meet that we had, I remember being there, and I had what I would call, this is a funny joke. Shout out to my friend Wesley Brent and Jimmy St. Louis. But I had these giants that I was throwing up against. One was 6'8" and one was like 6'5". Just to let you know how big they were and how good athletic they were, these guys were, one ended up getting drafted. He played at the University of Alabama, and he got drafted and drafted by the Chargers, and then went to the Patriots and played for the Patriots. The other one, I think, ended up going to Auburn. and then got drafted by and played at the Titans, I believe. But these guys were, for me at the time, I was 5'10". I was like, whoa. And I would throw my heart and soul out against these guys. They were at every meet I go to. Um, and I didn't think I made it. Like, I remember breaking down at that meet. I was like a few inches shy of something. And I think I came in fourth place. And they were like 1, 2. And then another guy was three, and I was fourth. And I was like, I broke down crying. I'll never forget it. I bawled my eyes out, left the meet, go back to school. And then somebody come pull me out of the class. And they were like, hey, you need to go down to the office. I'm thinking I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So I go down to the office, and the principal says to me, the state called, and one of the guys had scratched his throat. Wasn't one of the guys I knew, but the other guy, he scratched one of his throws. And the highest throw was mine. That was next. And I was like, they were like, so you're going to get to go to state. And I was like, what? For real? So I go to state, and again, I got to throw against these guys.
Speed run.
Let's run. Sprint.
Okay. Favorite color?
Red.
Of course. Favorite movie?
The Last Dragon.
Okay. Favorite sport to watch?
Football.
Favorite sport to play?
Football.
Okay. Favorite song to sing?
Ooh. Oh. Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Why'd you do that? Favorite song to sing. Back at one.
Let's hear it.
It's undeniable
Okay.
that we should be together.
You guys hear this? Why don't you make a song?
I love that
You gotta put this out there. Okay. Favorite.
Samantha.
Okay.
All of you guys.